Forum. Let's also welcome in my old congressional colleague, phoning in from Washington this morning, Congressman Walter B. Jones, Jr. of North Carolina. He's a member of the House Committee on Armed Services. And Walter, it is always good to have you here on America's Forum.
Well, J.D., thank you. Our friendship goes way back, and I'm delighted to be on your show. And there's so many issues facing our nation and our world. It's always a pleasure to talk to someone like you who is so well informed. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. And we would ask you to provide us some more information to the extent you can. The details of the bulletin that went to our nation's military. Anything you can add to what was sent out by the FBI and DHS?
J.D., not truthfully, what you shared with your viewers and your listeners is exactly what I know. We're having some briefings this week, and I'm sure more information will be shared to those of us who are on the committees of jurisdiction. But, I say this, I'm not surprised. I mean, the world we live in today, everybody puts everything on the Internet to the most personal things in the world. So how would we not expect an enemy who's got the same access to go on that Internet site and pick out any information and names that they want to?
It is a problem, Walter, that affects a lot of people, not only the military, and I think everyone has to do their own personal inventory of just what information they're putting out about themselves on these different social media sites. The other component, of course, of this, Walter, is the fact that the concern that ISIS is seeking out like-minded individuals to attack people right here in the homeland. Anything you have heard that would indicate a whole lot of lone rats are out there using computer information about our military? Well,
J.D., I think it's just common sense. I mean, I have said this for a number of years, and since ISIS became a world threat and concern, how many times we have not, and you're from Arizona, we have not secured the borders accurately. I don't know how many plants are in this country that have relationships or want to have relationship with ISIL now. I mean, some of this is just common sense. How in the world can a nation that is wide open with its borders not expect some of those people to come into this country, not to get jobs, but to create havoc for the American people?
And, of course, we've heard about the so-called caliph's wife and son being detained where? At Lebanon's border with Syria for false IDs. So it's interesting that the Lebanese, despite their problems, apparently have border security. About 1:30 left in this segment, Walter. Another item involving ISIS overseas. Reports now that Turkey and the U.S. are very close to an agreement that would allow coalition planes to use Turkish air bases to attack ISIS. How important is that development?
Well, J.D., you know me. I'm kind of like a Ron Paul type. I'm just sick and tired. We're spending $8 million a day to bomb in Libya and Iraq. We can't even pay our bills without raising the debt ceiling in March of 2015, meaning that we'll go to foreign governments to borrow more money to put the debt on our grandchildren. We can't pay our bills, and yet we think we can police the world. Wake up, America, before it's too late.
And let me ask you now, less than a minute remaining, about 30 seconds, your take on Chuck Hagel stepping down at the Pentagon. Why is it nobody wants to step up to be Secretary of Defense?
Well, I think primarily it's because the White House doesn't really have a sustainable foreign policy. I was not a big fan of George Bush. As you know, I came out against the Iraq War because we had no end point to it, and I don't think that the leadership knows whether Obama has a plan of what the victory plan is. That's the problem.
Fair enough. Walter Jones, we're going to ask you to stand by. Obviously, there are more topics to discuss today in the news, and so we appreciate what is transpiring. Still to come with Congressman Walter Jones, just what may transpire in this lame duck session of Congress. Stay with us as America's Forum continues. Let's continue our conversation with Congressman Walter B. Jones, Jr., Republican of North Carolina. Walter, what do you think the House Republican Conference will do in the lame duck session about this executive amnesty?
Well, J.D., when I finish this interview, I will be going to the Republican Conference, and this would be the topic that we will be discussing with the Speaker of the House. What options do we have? I have been saying down in my district, whenever you reward someone that's committed a crime, then you as that individual, if there's a impeachment, which was authorized by those who developed the Constitution, then that's what you should consider. But nobody wants to even talk about impeachment, JD, and I don't want that as an option except this reason. Why in the world are we going to spend millions and millions of the taxpayers' dollars going to the federal courts to challenge President Obama on this decision and have it thrown out of court? Here we go again as a nation that can't pay our bills. We're going to go to court and play a little political theater, make everybody feel good, and then the federal courts kick it out. Use what the Constitution says, but no, we won't do that.
Well, the concern, Walter, as you know, is that this is what the president is counting on to galvanize his supporters and to put conservatives and Republicans in Congress in an unfavorable situation politically. So you mentioned political theater with reference to the courts. Obviously, it would work both ways if you, in fact, exercise that constitutional option. That's the concern. But among those in the Republican conference, Walter, how many do you think believe impeachment is a possibility, or at least should be kept held out there as a plausible alternative?
JD, probably no more than 20, and probably more like 12 or 14. You made a great point. I want to build on that very quickly. When is it more important for policy of a nation instead of politics of a nation? That's what we always do up here. It's politics, it's politics, it's politics. It's never policy, policy, policy. That's what's wrong with our country.
And Walter, you mentioned spending, the runaway spending, and now a situation where in just a few days, 9 days, if there's not a continuing resolution or some sort of bill passed to pay the bills, then a shutdown looms. What should be the approach to that? A temporary continuing resolution funding the government until early next year? What do you think?
JD, I think if they would pose a continuing resolution until about February 1, that would be acceptable to most all of us, and we would accept that, but not going to September of 2015. That's when you know better than anybody. That's when you have more havoc being played with the taxpayers' money and the taxpayers' future.
And mindful of that, in less than 2 minutes remain, let's take a listen to Washington's resident psychiatrist, Dr. Charles Krauthammer, talking about a government shutdown. Here he is from the Fox News Channel.
Look, there's reality, and there's the way reality is reported in the media. And we know that you are right. If there were a government shutdown under these circumstances, it would be Obama be the one who's shutting it down with a veto. However, we also know that as the night follows day, it will be reported everywhere as a Republican shutdown, and they will suffer as they suffered last October 2013, and it was a disaster. Republicans are finally ahead of Democrats in the poll about who do you favor, and this would be the worst time to blow it.
What about that, Walter?
JD, that's what is wrong with this country. When Bill Clinton left office in 2000, we were $5.6 trillion in debt. Today, it's over 17.8. So let's be weak-kneed and continue to give in so we can borrow more money each and every year and say to our grandchildren, you have no future.
We got about
Somebody's got to have the strength to do what's right for this country, not what is politically right, but what is policy right.
15 seconds left. Would you vote for a continuing resolution that if it's short term?
I would consider it very seriously. I want to see what's in the bill, but I'm not going to support any long-term. September 2015, that's just another cave-in by the Congress.
Fair enough. Congressman Walter B. Jones, Jr., the Republican from North Carolina. My dear friend, it is always good to have you here on America's Forum.
Thank you, JD.
You heard what Walter B. had to say. Now, when we come back, we look overseas again to the Mideast with Waleed Phares. There's more to come here on America's Forum.